Hey guys, welcome to the Rebirth podcast. I want to thank you guys for watching and for listening. In this podcast, we talk to individuals that have had to reinvent, recreate, and reimagine in order to grow. But before you watch and listen, I want to remind you to subscribe, to like, to review, and to share this episode and this podcast with everyone that you know. Thank you so much and enjoy. Ever order food or
totally.
drinks?
When my kid was little, I was doing Raphael and Ninja Turtles when you were a little guy. My son is your age, and when we would go through drive-through at McDonald's had Animaniacs Happy Meals, and he said, "I bet you won't order food as Yakko." I said, "You just teed it up for me, son. You bet I will." So, hello, it's Yakko. Hello, McDonald's. Yakko Warner here. Listen, I want 47 Big Macs, 2 with no meat, 14 with extra sesame seeds, and 1 with no bun. Can you make that happen like yesterday? I know people. And you hear this sort of silence. And, what? Would you say that again? Come on, man. Were you born yesterday? Come on. What the hell's the matter with you? Come on. I want the Happy Meals, and I want 47 with no meat, 18 with extra sesame seeds, 1 with only 1 leaf of lettuce. And it's great fun. But that is the best part of my gig is when I start riffing, you lovely young people just light up. And it never fails. It is the most glorious gig.
Well, I'm lighting up. I got to tell you, I'm lighting up because, like you said, you just made a reference. I mean, loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles growing up. Oh my God, man, that was that was my jam. And to
Turtle power, dude.
Oh my God,
Raphael,
you. It's you.
It's
my
me.
life is complete.
How about that? And you know, what you're saying is not hyperbole. I meet people all around the world who will tell me the most deeply personal things about what, for the longest time, I considered a lovely way to make a living, but it's cartoons. Mm-hmm. You know, I take my work seriously, but not myself. You know, I make my living doing essentially what got me in trouble in 7th grade. However, man, when I started doing conventions around the world and going to meet people, often military folks who would tell me the most incredible stories, or people who would say, "Mr. Paulsen, I'm 38, I'm 40 years old now, but you will never know what Ninja Turtles meant to me. I was part of the foster system, and I went to 5 different homes from the time I was 6 months old till I was 18. And it was brutal, leaving one home to go for another one, a new school, new family, not knowing what I was going into. But you know what? As long as there was a television, Ninja Turtles was my de facto go-to family. And people at the new house would find out I loved Ninja Turtles, and they would shower me with turtle stuff, and it was familiar. So I'm here with my family now, and my wife knows what Ninja Turtles means to me, and you will never get it. And they're right. It is a profound thing. You tell that man it's just a cartoon. Or you tell a young man who drives from 3 states away to meet my friend the Brain and me. We do Pinky and the Brain, and he'll come up and say, "Mr. Paulsen, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little teary-eyed, but, you know, big tatted-out badass killing machine."
Yeah.
Right? But he'll say, I did 3 tours, man, and I had my Pinky and the Brain videos. And I'd come back from patrol, and it took me a little while to get my stuff together, but you just won't know what these cartoons meant to me. Who knew, JR?
Wow.
And that, my friend, is the most profound gift I could imagine from doing this gig. And again, you tell those people it's just a cartoon.
But when you got into this space, I mean, that wasn't the intention, right?
No,
that wasn't...
my God, I wanted to work. I'm like you.
Yeah.
I wanted to work. But you said something before we started recording that is very important. You talked about how these doors just open up and you keep banging on them and stuff. I think you and I have lived that axiom that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. I'm sure that you didn't expect, obviously, a great part of your life that influenced you physically. But look what you've done. Talk about making lemonade. My goodness, my friend. And the number of times that I have said, especially because I went down this road with animation. I was just doing live action stuff like everybody else. I'm a singer, became an actor, moved here from Michigan, like everybody else, doing my gig. And then somebody says, "You ever thought about doing animation?" Well, of course, everybody wants to work on cartoons. Yeah, what do you got? And the first shows I did were G.I. Joe and Transformers. And what I noticed immediately, JR, was I walk in, I see a bunch of wonderful actors, many of whom I recognized from episodic television growing up in the 70s. And none of them were limited by the way they looked. They were literally doing what kids do when we act, when we play. Okay, you be the monster. Okay, I'm the monster. And you be the pirate. All right, I'm the pirate. And you be a lab mouse with buck teeth. Okay, what does that mean? Nerf. Who cares? I don't know. Blah, 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 blah. And then one thing leads to another, and you're working. And I called my agent. I said, "Look, man, I want to work. If there's any more of this stuff, please send me out for more animation." And my timing was great. Cartoons exploded really in the early 90s. They started taking off. And the first big show I got was Turtles. And one thing leads to another. And there was a point at which I finally said, you know, I like doing the on-camera stuff, but it's not like people are banging down my door. Apparently I have a face for cartoons. Well, okay, but I'm not typed. Nobody cares what I look like. Nobody cares that I'm an average-looking kid from Michigan. 5'9", $150, whatever. I'm not hired because I could be the boyfriend of the girl they've already, you know.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not limited. And now I'm old enough to be your dad, and I'm still not limited by the way I look. It's all about creativity and
what goes into that what goes into like voiceover work, right? Like, I mean, you talked about Turtles was your first job. Like, how much work did you do to prepare for that? How do you prepare for that? Like, how do you prepare for that character? I mean, is it the same process if it is somebody that is going to be on camera portraying it? Like, you find out who this character is, what's the personality traits, but then how do you develop, like, how you just so easily right now just go into all these different like voices and, you know, personas? Like, how do you create that?
It has a lot to do with improv. Improv is a big skill set in this vibe. But yes, you're an actor, and acting is acting. If you were to work on an animated project, you would get a visual of what the character looked like that might give you some physical cues, but then you would get a backstory about how the character relates with other characters, just like you do in a soap script if you're a regular on a soap. You don't have to shoot 7, 8, 12, 15, 30 pages a day.
Yeah.
That's the toughest gig in show business. That is
and it doesn't get a lot of respect.
Now, let me tell you something, folks. This gentleman out here, when you're a regular on a soap opera, that is the toughest gig in Hollywood for an actor.
Yeah.
Because now, and for the camera blocking and all that, I get that. But man, when you're out there and you got to learn 15 pages a day, and if you're the one who's in the love triangle and you're really the one that's getting all the juice, man, you go home and literally you hit the bed, you sleep, and you wake up in the morning, and you might wake up 5 hours early, start working on lines, and it's a very tough gig. You don't have all day to shoot.
It's
like
fast
a movie.
paced. Yeah, we're going. We got to move to the next item.
That's
Get your
right.
lines. You know, figure it out. Let's go. Let's move on. And when that's like, I always tell people, like, for me, it was an incredible opportunity for me to break into the space and learn quickly on the fly.
On the fly.
I mean, I had to learn quickly, and I think it honestly, it sort of fits my life. When you look at the pattern of my life, the history of my life, it fits.
Yeah.
I think if I would have had the opportunity to work on a film or a show where it takes all day. I remember the first time I had the opportunity to work outside the soap, and I was going to do a guest appearance on Army Wives. And I remember that when they said, they gave me my call time the day before. And I think it was 7 a.m. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, I only had like 2 scenes. And I was like, this is perfect. I'll be done by like 7:45. So I start planning the rest of the day.
Surprise.
I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm like, okay. And it's my birthday.
Oh, my.
And so I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, I'm just going to have the rest of the day, like whatever. And so I start planning.
Sure.
I show up on set, 7 o'clock. I remember standing there as they're doing camera blocking. And then a gentleman comes and stands next to me, and I look at him and I was like, "What are you doing?" I asked him, like, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "Oh," he's like, "I'm your stand-in." And I was like, "Stand-in for what?" And he was like, "Oh, you don't have to do all this. You can go sit down."
Trailer.
And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I stand in for you and I do all the camera blocking and everything. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I worked on all my children and we did it ourselves. And it happened fast. And then I was like, okay.
This is a luxury.
And I turned around, I walked away, and there was a chair with my name on it. I went and sat down. I mean, all my children, I went and sat down in the other sets that had furniture. That's where I sat.
Sure.
And then I just remember that it took me all day to shoot those 2 scenes. And there was a lot of sitting around. I thought to myself, now, this isn't the right thing to say to an actor that's especially crossing into getting into the space. But I was like, I spent the last 2 weeks learning dialogue for today. I could have figured this out for the hour that you guys were changing all the cameras and all the sets and moving it. I could have been back there studying my lines and picking it up because all my children had conditioned me to when all of a sudden the director or one of the producers or writers would be like, hey, we're actually changing the lines. We're actually changing the scripts. We're cutting this dialogue. We're cutting this. We're merging this now. You actually say nothing. And it goes right to Rob. And it's like, wait, okay, quickly on the fly. So I think it just worked for me. It was the perfect space for me to cross into it, to be able to succeed.
Well, also your military background, I would suspect, gives you a lot of discipline to handle that stuff.
Yeah.
Because my father was in the military, and I love the discipline of having a job, of the, as they say, the dignity of work. But in our business, work is hard to come by.
Yep.
However, the fact that I don't have to learn lines is not only a luxury, but it gives me more time to put into the character. So if I do my job, then the character and the animation and the blah, blah, blah should be seamless. I should get a reaction from Tyler and Melody that I've been getting. When I maybe sometimes riff like Carl Weezer, sometimes they like that too. And look at these beautiful people. It's so wonderful. If I'm good at my job, that's what should happen.
Does that hurt, though, like doing that voice?
Oh, it's horrible. No, it doesn't hurt at all. No, it doesn't hurt at all. I mean, now mind you, also, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in Hollywood for 43 years, and I've been doing animation for 35 of those years, almost 35, 34, 33. So, and the whole time I was doing it, I'm working with the groundlings, my improv partners, and the people with whom I work are folks like Lorraine Newman and Phil Hartman, and people who are terrifyingly gifted.
Gifted, yeah.
That you either jump in the pool and you swim or you don't. It's not personal. It's not mean. It's just the bar is really freaking high. So I think one of the smartest things I did, JR, when I was a kid, especially when I moved here, was to surround myself with people who are much better than I, much better. People whom I could learn from, even if initially it scared the hell out of me. Because I thought, I can't keep up with Phil Hartman. And it was Phil who took me aside and said, you're not supposed to, man. You're supposed to learn. If I can inspire you, great. Steal bits and pieces. That's what I did. And it helped me a lot to be around people and get thrown in the pool. And then I'm working with Jonathan Winters and George Hearn and my friend Maurice, Tressa McNeil, Nancy the whole cast of The Simpsons, all these people who are so gifted. And they can riff all day as their characters without a script. And that's where the improv training really helped me a lot.
So did you do like separate improv, like, you know how they have like Second City?
Yeah, I was not a member of any particular group, but I studied with the Groundlings. And that helped me a lot. But also I was working every day with people like that. And I got to do shows. There was an animated version of The Mask in the middle 90s in which I got to be the Jim Carrey role for a whole lot less money. But that gig lends itself to really thinking on your feet.
Oh, yeah.
Because the movie, when they did the Mask movie, of course, Jim Carrey is Jim Carrey, but he only did it, was a 2-hour movie. When you're doing 13 or 26 half hours, you're doing essentially 6 movies worth of putting on the mask and flipping out and becoming a cowboy, and then you turn out to be a pizza chef, and then you turn out to be a knight in shining armor, and then you turn out to be a longshoreman. And so the gig lent itself to doing that at a high level, and knowing that if you don't cut it, you're replaced.
Right.
And I like that pressure. I like it knowing that I got 1 or 2 cracks at it, because then I go back and I look at it and say, okay, here you really killed it. Here you really didn't kill it. Here nobody's saying anything, but you knew. you knew when they would say, okay, great, let's move on, next position. You go, God, if you could give me one more shot at that, I know there's something I can do different or better. So you know, and it sets you up for doing it better the next time.
Right.
And that's why I love that gig.
I'm curious because, as a speaker, I've been thinking about this over the last couple of years. Like, I try to, pay attention to like singers and what singers say in regards to how they take care of their voice. Because when I'm on stage, I mean, I'm a very animated speaker, right? I project. I got a lot of energy.
Well, also, you're there to entertain them too.
I'm there to entertain them,
Yes.
right? And storytelling, which is what we're all
That's
doing.
what we do.
And I have these arcs, and I have these moments where my voice goes here, and then my voice comes to here, and then I'm telling you this, and then it's like, but why all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and it's like there's all these levels to your voice, and so you really have to start to understand your voice, right? Understand. But I always think about like, I gotta, what do you do to take care of your voice? Right? Like, I've had these moments where I've come off a stage, and especially, when those stretches when it's really busy, which is a blessing, as we discussed. But it's like I come off of those stretches, and I'm like, oh, my voice is like strained. Like,
Yeah.
like, do you ever feel that? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
And what do you do to combat that? Like, drink tea, hydrate, cough drops,
Lots of water, smoke 6 packs of cigarettes a day, give my voice a little,
A little, I like having a little bit of, grit in there so I can make a bad guy voice.
No, I just I listen to my body. There are certain characters that are much more onerous. There's a character I had so much fun with on a show called Fairly Odd Parents years ago over at Nickelodeon.
And he's this weird space guy who's in love with a girl named Vicky, and his name is Mark Chang. He's from Yugopatamia. And I'm good for doing that for about an hour, man. And after that, I'm in the dumper.
And so I would go to the producer and say, like, okay, here we got Mark is in this episode. I love doing the guy. Maybe we should let everybody else, I'll use my normal voice, and we can get everybody else done, and then I'll pick my stuff up afterwards. Because you got me for about an hour, and then that starts happening. It's like going to a hockey game and yelling for 2 hours. But generally, I do. I get a lot of rest. I drink a ton of water. Tea is my drink of choice. I used to drink a lot of coffee, and it didn't really make one difference when I switched more to tea, but it feels better.
What kind of tea? Like, is there?
I just drink. I like plain old Lipton tea,
Yeah.
or PG Tips or whatever. But if I'm working, like we do Animaniacs in concert, where we do this music of Animaniacs, and we do with 80-piece orchestras, and it's just spectacular.
What
to
an
sing.
experience.
Oh, to sing in front of a band that big is really something. And there I drink when it's really about my singing voice, then it's like chamomile or green tea with lemon and honey, but nothing special. If I wear my voice out, or I have an ENT, an ear, nose, throat doc that takes a look at my voice if things get a little bit weird. I had a bout with throat cancer a few years ago, and I'm fine now. That got my attention because it beat the living daylights out of my voice with all the radiation to the bottom of my jaw and my neck. And there are a couple of notes that I can't reach anymore due specifically to the radiation, but you improvise.
Yeah.
I'm a big rock and roll fan. When I hear Led Zeppelin, it was already been, 10 years ago, but they got together for a one-off concert at the O2 Arena in London, and Robert Plant was probably about 60 at the time. And there were certain songs that are iconic, and I was a singer, interesting to see what he's going to do here, because then he's getting older, man.
Right.
Stuff happens.
Yeah.
And in that gig, when you've been screaming like that for 40 years, the fact that you got a couple $100 million in the bank notwithstanding, it beats you up.
Yeah.
But I'll be damned. He not only sounded great, but the choices he made with the notes that were really high, screaming notes in the 70s, he tweaked them. So he didn't hit there, but he made a very good choice that worked beautifully in the context of the song. And that's what you do as a pro. You think, okay, I can, especially with animated characters, I can sing songs. My character from a show called Animaniacs is named Yakko Warner. And Yakko sang a very iconic song in which he enumerates every country of the world. Sings United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador too, and goes on to every country. And so if there are some nights where if we're doing 4 or 5 concerts in a row, and some nights I get to Tunisia, Morocco, Uganda, Angola, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Botswana. I can sing Tunisia, Morocco, Uganda, Angola, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Botswana. And the audience doesn't care.
They don't know the difference.
All they know is, my God, that knucklehead hit every country. And if I decide that I don't have the juice, it doesn't make sense for me to hit a note that I know I'm not going to hit, just to try to hit it. I would rather give the folks the best performance I can give, and eschew a couple of notes, and leave them going, oh my God, the guy, it was just exactly the way I wanted it to be. That's more important.
You know, it's I a few years ago, there was this very popular show back in the 90s, and you know, I'm going to refrain from naming the character just because for the individual, but this individual came up to me and he was like, I'm that dude, I'm the character, I was the person. And it was kind of aggressive, and I was like, that's cool. That's really cool. And he's like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, I was the person. So then I was, the rest of the evening, like we're in this public place, and I'm following him.
He's doing that a lot.
And he's doing that a lot. And I just thought to myself, that, there's, I tend to dive in and try to understand a little bit more than just kind of looking at the surface. But in my mind, I'm thinking to myself,
that's very kind of you, because the initial response is, what a jerk.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Oh, you're a little aggressive.
That's very kind of you.
But in my mind, I'm like, what is it? Yeah, what are you lacking? And I got to think to myself, for someone that has played a character that is so popular in Monty Manual and part of pop culture, part of a lot of people's, childhood and memories. People don't know it's you.
Right.
They just know the character. And I think to myself, like, for you, did you ever have that moment of like, oh, it's me?
Look, I would be...
I'm the person.
That's very kind of you. That's a great question. Firstly, I make it in every interview I do, and this is no different. I don't draw them. I don't write them. I'm really good at my job. But so are you. So are these folks. We ought to be. People are paying us American dollars to do our gig. I often say that I'm glad I had the sort of ego that allowed me to go down this road, because I had a wonderful actor, bless his heart, he's still around. Alan Oppenheimer said to me one day at Hanna-Barbera, he saw me on the phone with my theatrical agent, my TV and movie agent, kind of subtly arguing, because the guy was saying, look, they want to see you for Hill Street Blues at NBC tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And I said, oh, God, I can't. I'm doing Animaniacs in the morning, and the afternoon I'm doing Smurfs, man. I'm doing 2 gigs. Both pay well. They're Screen Actors Guild gigs. I'm going to make some residuals, and I'm working with Jonathan Winters and Olivia Hussey and, oh my gosh, Ernest Borgnine's going to be on Pinky and the Brain today. Wonderful actors. I'm not going to turn that. It's a gig.
Right.
And it was Alan Oppenheimer who said, you're getting a lot of work in this realm. Do you have the sort of ego that would be cool if you didn't get recognized one day? And I have to tell you that I would be lying if I said I don't like it when people make a fuss over me. I'm here today ostensibly because I've done a bunch of characters that people know. They don't necessarily know it's me, but you're changing that a little bit by giving me a bully pulpit from which to tell my story.
Right.
It's incredibly humbling, but it's not what drives me. However, once people find out, and the reactions that I get from these lovely young folks, it is glorious.
You're in.
I'm in.
You light up.
Because I've been on the other side of that. I got to work with Mel Blanc a couple of times before he died, obviously. And I always love when people say, yeah, I worked with him before he died. Oh, really? Well, you're the greatest. We have 2 living presidents with us. Well, it's getting kind of stinky. Have you got Reagan in a box over there? Fortunately. So Mr. Blank, I got to work with him at Hanna-Barbera on a Jetsons project years ago, 30 years ago. And the late great Gordon Hunt, who was Helen Hunt's father but directed all the cartoons at Hanna-Barbera, said, "Hey, Robbie, Mel Blanc is here today. You want to sit next to Mel?" I said, "Oh my God." And Mel, for those of you who don't know, Mr. Blanc was Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Tweety, Marvin the Martian, Pepe Le Pew, everybody, Foghorn Leghorn, Yosemite Sam.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
We're across the street from Warner Brothers. He pretty much built that joint. Of course, they make movies too. But I sat next to Mr. Blank and I said, "Mr. Blank, like anyone with a pulse, I'm a huge fan. If it's not too much trouble," and of course he knew what I wanted, and he just looked at me and said, "Yeah, what's up, Doc?" And it was the most incredible experience. So now, while I would never compare myself to Mr. Blank, that's for other people to do. But we saw what happened when I started riffing as Yakko. Look at, you can't help it.
Yeah.
It is glorious. And I submit that while these two folks are so sweet to make me feel really important, it is I who get the bigger kick out of it. I'm the one. And so I don't need to say, "Hey, I'm the guy." If you ask me, you bet I'll riff, because it makes me feel like $1,000,000, and it turns out it makes other people happy too.
Right.
But I have a lot of friends who are very famous, just like you. I have a lot of friends who are really well known, and I am glad for them. It definitely is a different kind of fame. It's tangential. As I said, I don't draw them and I don't write them. But enough people make a fuss over me, and I don't need to have a circumstance where I get a better table because I'm someone. But there, to be sure, my friend, is something about the way those characters affect people to their souls that just light them up, and that's fine. That's good enough for me.
It's fast. Yeah, I mean, there's a message in that, right? For anybody, even if you're not in this space, in this voiceover space, but do what you love and just do it because you love it, and and the impact will happen.
It makes your soul happy.
Exactly, like you're happy, and in turn. And it's also that message too. Like when you're doing voiceover work, I mean, you're enclosed in a small space, reading a script and doing your thing, right? Or if you know it off the top of your head or whatever, but you're doing your thing, and it's hard to be able to understand that on the other side of that camera or on the other side of that microphone, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be people listening, watching a character do something that are going to fall in love with it, right? They're going to have a connection, as you kind of gave us a few examples. And you have to know that at the end of the day, on the other side of this thing.
That's exactly right. And as I mentioned a bit earlier in our lovely chat, it wasn't until I started going and doing a lot of personal appearances that I got to see the result of this work. Obviously, we knew people were watching, and because we'd get picked up for another season on whatever. I mean, God, I did Ninja Turtles for 9 years. That thing was enormous, and it's still enormous.
It is.
So we know that people are watching. However, when it came to doing like Comic-Con in San Diego, and now they're so ubiquitous, there are comic conventions, comic book conventions, pop culture conventions every weekend around the world.
Yeah,
somewhere.
everywhere.
And they're not just mom and pop outfits with 50 or a couple hundred people. They're 100,000, a couple 100,000. New York is 300,000 or 400,000 over the weekend. San Diego's a 250,000. It generates what, $50 million for the city of San Diego for a week's worth of people, and the experience is quite overwhelming. And that's when I got to see how deeply people connect with these characters. And interestingly, I get so many wonderful reactions from kids on the autism spectrum who, for whatever reason, find animation a way for them to often become verbal. And that's when you really see how the parents will, be standing behind their sweet little boy or girl who may have trouble relating to you and me on a personal level, but for whatever reason, the character that I happen to perform, or some of my friends, my goodness, a couple of my best friends are Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, who played Batman and the Joker, respectively, on the Batman the Animated Series, which was fantastic cartoon. But when you see people lining up outside to talk to the Joker, not Mark Hamill, not Luke Skywalker, In this case, it's the Joker. And then Mark starts riffing as the Joker, and it's the parents of these kids get pretty tearful because that, for whatever, or it could be Mickey Mouse.
Right.
It could be Donald. It could be Bart.
Right.
But something about those characters really seem to connect with folks on the autism spectrum. It's a fascinating thing to watch.
I mean, what does it do for you? Like, next time you get a script, next time you go into a booth, and I mean, does that change the way that you show up?
It definitely gives me a different, it's about more than my paycheck. I learned that a while ago, that, look, I've been rich and I've been poor. It turns out rich is better. Surprise. But that is not what drives me. You said it better than I. If you're able to find something that just lights up your soul, I don't care if it's acting, running the board here, producing the show, working, doing automobile repair, working at a flower shop. Man, I don't care what it is. Working on a farm. If you are able to get up in the morning and think, oh man, I cannot wait to go feed those cows. I don't know what that is, but the smell, the excitement, I love being on a farm. You know, there's a bright golden haze on the meadow, and I couldn't be happier being anywhere else. Then that's your thing.
Yeah.
That's it. For me, it's entertaining. It is not. It turns out that my life and my career has gone down this road, but whether it's live action, doing a TED Talk, I do public speaking as well, that lights me up as too, in a different way. And knowing that something for which I've been paid well to do has inspired someone who also is struggling with throat cancer, or in your case, my goodness, the number of people whom you've been able to inspire and help and bring joy to, or someone, I know, I'm not speaking hyperbole, the number of people who thought, you know what, I don't think I want to be here anymore. And how many times have you saved that person from doing that, from literally or figuratively pulling the trigger on something that was going to end their life? You and I have gotten to a totally different level in our work that I never in a million years would have expected.
Yeah.
Never would I have thought that the opportunity to bring joy through these characters and connect with people on a different level that maybe would stop them from doing something that they would have regretted. This is way bigger than show business, man.
Yeah,
You know?
that's powerful.
It is.
That's powerful. It's beautiful, and it's one of those important things that if all of us can connect to that, if we can find that purpose and that meaning in what we do.
Yes, sir.
And at the end of the day, it just really boils down to people. You're impacting people.
It just does, and all of us, I'm as serious as a pimple on prom night. All of us. Which is serious for a lot of people.
Serious.
It's serious. But honestly, all of us have that ability in our different ways. Even if it's something as simple as a daily interaction with the homeless person you see, or even if you see someone on the side of the road, or we live in Hollywood, my goodness, the number of homeless encampments are at once appalling, and at the same time, they allow me to exercise my sense of empathy. And at night, when I put my head on the pillow of a brand new washed, clean bed in a nice home, and I remember the gentleman that I had $5, and I don't know if he bought booze with it or not. It doesn't really matter to me. The fact is that gentleman was there at that moment, and I was able to give him some comfort, or even if it was saying, "I see you," you know. And your experience, you won't know this, but later on, I'm going to remember you and be so grateful to have a clean bed to sleep in. The things that I would take for granted, that we all take for granted. But just the opportunity to see people who are struggling in a city like L.A. and think, I'm going to eat clean food.
Yeah.
And I know where I'm going to get it. And I can afford it.
Yeah.
And just a fresh banana is a big deal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that those are the things that have really helped me try to be, I always say I'm a nice guy. I want to be a better guy. And those experiences that other people are struggling with, if I'm aware of them and if I take the time to see them, makes me a better person.
Yeah.
You know.
I love that, man. What do you like? What would you say to someone that is listening right now that says, "Oh, I've been told by people that I should dabble into this voiceover space"?
Right.
What would you say to them? I mean, what was your your journey like? And I feel like now, like for people come up to me all the time and say, "Hey, listen, I want to be a speaker. I want to cross into the speaking space." And I say, well, first of all, this is crazy to say. Like, I'm 38 years old. I crossed into this when I was 20. Me getting into it at 20 years old was very different than if you wanted to get into it at this point, right? And
I mean, if the person's your age and says,
right,
yes.
right, and I was like, because
and what do you want to talk about?
I mean, first of all, there's so many platforms. You don't really need the big agent, the big
Speakers
organization.
Bureau. Right.
You don't need the big platform. I mean, you have it. Social media.
YouTube is free.
YouTube. I mean, so like, if you want to be a speaker, just start recording on your phone and uploading it,
Right.
and
See what happens.
Read the comments.
Yes.
And I feel like is that the same thing for like the voiceover space?
Pretty much. I tell people it's one thing to be, if you're the big voice guy and you do promos or commercials, that's one thing. I'm an actor, and I've learned that acting is acting, whether it's with your face or with your body. And so I tell people the same thing. It's about acting. If your school has a vital and a viable theater department, you're in high school, great. This is the time to try it when you're 18, 19, 20, 25 years old, when you can be selfish. It's about you. I never want to pee on anybody's party, but when somebody at 38 or 40 says, "Mr. Paulsen, I'm a chemistry professor here in Buffalo, and I have been talking to my wife and kids about the fact that, I do a killer SpongeBob. And people love it when I do that. At my friend's bat mitzvah last week, his little girl just loved it. She lit up when I was going, whatever. So you're here in Buffalo, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm a big fan. Thank you very much. I'm thinking it's time for me to move to L.A. Well, how old are you, sir? I'm 47. Well, I've been in L.A. since I was 22. Now, you may be wonderful. And with all due respect to your SpongeBob, Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob, still does it, and he will until he dies or he doesn't want to do it anymore. So that alone, with all due respect, sir, is not going to get your foot in the door in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. YouTube is free. Why don't you play? Get together with people who are of a like mind around, surround yourself with people who are creative and want to do stuff like this. If you want to create your own animated project, man, there are animation programs that people can do from home, or find a guy who happens to be online and he's in South Africa. Mm-hmm. And you can work together in real time right now from your home in Buffalo. Because as fun as it sounds, when it's your job, as you know, it takes on a whole different complexion.
Yeah.
When you have to take care of braces and your doggy's sick, or fixing the sewer at your house, it's not the same. Mm-hmm. Now, and you're doing it at 47. You've got kids. You told me you've got a wife and children. Well, Dad going out to audition for the next Talking Chicken on Who's Cooking the Soup gets old pretty quick if there's no money coming in.
Right.
And whatever you think it's going to cost you to move to L.A. from Buffalo, triple it.
Yeah.
Gas alone is $1 more a gallon.
Yeah.
And you don't have public transport like you do in New York. Mm-hmm. So I tell them the same thing. Have fun. Just do it for its own sake. If you're a kid and you're in your teens or 20s, you're thinking, I'm thinking about moving to L.A., great. This is a time to go try it. Mm-hmm. People often say, well, isn't it hard? Well, hard is pouring hot tar out here on the street in Burbank in August. That's a hard job. Mm-hmm. Hard is working on a farm. Hard is being a police officer or being in the military. Those are hard jobs. Who forced you at gunpoint to be an actor? Yeah. This is a choice.
Yeah.
Does it get difficult? Well, of course it gets difficult.
Everything does.
Everything does.
Yeah.
Trying to get into MIT to be an engineer is difficult because it's highly competitive. Everybody has 1600s on their SATs. Everybody. Mm-hmm. So did I get a bunch of straight jobs? Of course I did. Everybody does. Yeah, but I don't know if I want to do that. Well, then this isn't for you. Not a judgment. Mm-hmm. It's just I forgot the actor who said, if this sounds like it'd be a blast for you, don't do it. If you can't not do it, if you go to bed at night and you wake up in the morning and you sweat thinking of, oh my God, if I don't give this a shot, I'm going to die, then give it a shot. But don't give it a shot at 50 or even 38. I would give it a shot when you're a kid, when you can afford to be selfish, when you have no problem bouncing from job to job, when you literally, it's happened to me more than half a dozen occasions when I was a kid. I would get my third call back on a pilot at NBC or CBS or whatever, and I'd be working at someplace at a straight record store, and I'd say, hey man, can I get somebody to cover my shift? There's nobody. It's your job. It's at the time for your third callback. Well, I'm going to have to quit the job then. Okay, but you can't come back. So I'd quit the job and go to my callback and then have to look for another job because I didn't get the pilot.
Yep.
So what? That's the way it goes. That's, as you say, part of the journey. It sure makes it sweet when you get one, to look back on it. But none of this is a surprise. Is it challenging? Of course it is. Everybody wants to be in show business who's here. And a lot of them are really, really good. And you'll meet people whom you've never heard of, and they'll blow you away. As good as you think you are, you'll walk out and meet some young man or woman who will just put you in the ground with their talent or their singing or their dancing, and just blow your mind. I say, look at that as a challenge. Hook up with that person. Well, hook up in the technical sense. Just say, I want to know this person. I want to know, how did you get that good? I want to learn from you because you're so much better than I am, and be willing to accept that. Don't look at that as a put down. Say, yeah, I'm going to learn because this is a long haul job. This is a marathon. I'm 65 years old, and I've been doing this. I've been in Hollywood, working, paying for everything from pet food to braces. My son was born when I was 28, so yeah, I haven't had a straight job since 1985, so 86. So I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it never ends. The hustle never ends, and you've got to learn to enjoy the hustle, and I do.
Yeah. That's as you know, the name of this podcast is called Rebirth, and the whole sort of vibe behind that is that this idea that a part of you or something dies and it creates an opportunity for something else to be born.
Yes.
You mentioned this earlier, your bout with throat cancer.
Surprise.
You're a cancer survivor,
Yeah.
but your identity for so long up until that moment was your voice. Your voice was your ability to connect and to impact. Now all of a sudden that's, threatened.
Right.
And you're not sure if you're ever going to be able to do that again. Here, all of a sudden you're experiencing now a rebirth. Talk to us about what that process was like, because I'm assuming that now it's like, oh my God, you're taking away everything that I've known for the past X amount of years, and will I ever be able to do it again?
Exactly right. And that was what was most terrifying. Not whether or not I'd live or die. My experience started with a lump on the left side of my neck, which I noticed shaving one day, and being a typical, I grew up in Michigan playing hockey. I still go out in Burbank and bang around with my buddies all the time and play hockey. And typical guy, unless I can't feel a limb or I'm bleeding profusely and requiring some stitching, I go to the doctor once a year for my physical. So I put it off and went to the doctor, and sure enough, he put his hands on it and said, not good. And I thought he was messing around. I've known the guy forever. And he said, no, if this were just a low-grade infection, it would be soft. This is a knot. And within about a week, I'd been poked and prodded and biopsied, and it turned out to be stage 3 metastatic squamous cell carcinoma of the throat. And the primary tumor was not here. It was staged at 3 because this is the area to which the cancer had spread. The primary tumor was at the base of my tongue and my throat. I was told at the beginning, they suss you out pretty quick. I mean, you've been through an impossibly difficult circumstance, much more difficult than I. But they do suss you, and I know it's relative, but still, they suss you out pretty quick. They know that you've got the spirit that you possess. The folks and the doctors and the people on the other end of the circumstance, they get a pretty good feeling pretty quickly about what can JR handle or what can Rob handle? Is he freaked out or has he got a positive attitude? And my attitude was like, well, I reckon we better light this candle then. And I remember God bless him, my radiation oncologist, Dr. Henry Yampolsky from Russia. He sounds like Goldfinger. He comes in, he says, Mr. Paulsen, it's a pleasure to meet you. Hello, it's a fine day to meet you today. Thank you. First, let me tell you, I'm certain we can cure you. Unfortunately, before we do, we almost have to kill you. And I started laughing because I said, man, you sound like Goldfinger. You expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. And I said, oh, my God, we're going to get along great. But I did what you're doing right now. And he said, don't lose that. He says, that is so important. Don't stop the laughing. You trust me, you will need to be laughing. There will be times when you don't think you're going to live the next day because of the radiation. It was brutal.
Yeah.
But it had to be to do what it had to do. So I was pretty sure right off the bat that I was going to live. But then the question is, well, if you live, you nailed it. This is everything. What does living mean after that? Does living mean that I'm going to be talking like this, or I'm going to be God forbid, like Val Kilmer, who I've had the good fortune of meeting a couple of times, and talk about a brave guy. I mean, he's a movie star. Mm-hmm. This is what he's about. I mean, he's got a big heart and wonderful talent. But when you watch Top Gun or Batman,
yeah,
you know what I mean, right? And so I'm glad I jumped on it right away. But my fear when things were really tough was, are you going to be able to speak or sing? And that they had no answer to. They said, yeah, you'll be able to speak, but will you be able to do your job? Not sure. Straight up. Frankly, that's not our job. Our job is to save your life, and then off you go. But I am able to do my job. Moreover, I'm able to do it at the same level that I did before I had my treatment. And yes, I did go through a rebirth. We're right down the street from Lakeside Country Club. I was a golf junkie and loved to play at Lakeside, every club in Southern California. But I got to tell you, once I got done with my cancer stuff, I don't think I've touched a golf club once or twice. Not that I don't like golf anymore, but I'm having so much more fun doing this. I'm having so much more fun helping. I'm having so much more fun writing a book and talking about how I got through my experience and finding that if that's inspirational to someone, I am so in, and that beats any 2-foot birdie putt any day.
Yeah.
Any day. Moreover, I'm back working on Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain with Steven Spielberg again after cancer. I got hired again by the king of Hollywood after I went through all my treatment for throat cancer, which I lost 50 pounds. I still can't really taste food anymore. Before my cancer experience, if someone said, you know how much you really enjoy this Indian food? There will come a time where the least spicy of it will light you up like a Christmas tree, and it won't be worth eating. Frankly, you can't taste it anyway. I would have said, oh, my God, what? How? What's the point of living if I can't enjoy food?
Yeah.
BS. I'm fine. Food is now something that keeps me alive, and I'm grateful when I can taste it, and when I can't, it's just part of the deal. But then my sense of empathy is so keen now because having gone through something that was utterly life-changing and very difficult, when I hold someone's hand, literally or figuratively, and I say, dude, I get it. I really get it. I know what I'm talking about now. And when I referenced folks on the street, people who are really struggling with things that I will never have to struggle with, or if I see a woman maybe in her 50s or so dragging a big bag of recyclables across the street to try to get $20. If that young woman, she's younger than I, if that woman is diagnosed with the same type of cancer I had, where's she going to go when she's going to feel like shit? Mm-hmm. Where's she going to go? Under the overpass? in a 2-bedroom apartment with 4 other people. I mean, I'm making judgments, but if she's dragging a big bag of recyclables, she's not doing really well financially. I got to go home to a beautiful house. I had a wife, and still have a wife. Sorry, honey. Who and my son and my daughter-in-law who did everything they could do to make me healthy and happy and comfortable. I had world-class doctors. I have nice people like you who allow me to tell my story. And the joy I derive now out of the simplest things, out of going, wow, I got to taste that. For some reason, it's working today. Have you ever tasted how good a banana tastes? This is a really goddamn good banana. Everything's firing in my taste buds today. It is a rebirth. Mm-hmm. It's like a little baby going, oh my God, you have got it's a banana. Yeah, but Jesus, God Almighty, what a banana, Chiquita, honey, you're killing it on this. I am so grateful, and I've always been a happy-go-lucky guy, but now I really get how to coin that the movie title. It is a wonderful life, and it doesn't have to be Christmas time to feel that way. So my experience does not have a silver lining; it has a platinum lining. I'm able to help. I'm able to do my job. The fact that you and I are having this lovely conversation, because of your kindness, we never know when someone may be watching this and say, hey, Uncle Bob, you know how much we love watching Pinky and the Brain? Well, you turned me on to that when I was in grade school and you were in college, and now we're watching it together, and I've got my own kids and all that stuff. But the guy who's Pinky that we used to watch when I was in high school, do you know that he had throat cancer and he's back doing it again with Steven Spielberg after throat cancer? Well, you were just diagnosed. You're going to be okay, Uncle Bob. Mm. You're going to go through the same thing Rob Paulsen.
We got to kill you. To save
that's right. Might have to before we do, we almost have to kill you. But man, are you going to enjoy the taste of a banana once your taste buds come back?
Is that why you wrote Voice Lessons?
It is, precisely because of that. Thank you for bringing that up. I did because I knew that now I have a story to tell. I had very many well-meaning, lovely fans who said to me through the years, God, Mr. Paulsen, you should write a book. I mean, you've done this and you've done that, and 2 different Ninja Turtles and all different blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, firstly, it's very flattering that anybody would say that. Mm-hmm. It's always kind.
Right.
But the last thing the world needs is a celebrity bio, another celebrity memoir from a non-celebrity. And it's not false modesty. Like I said, I'm good at my job. But I don't draw them and I don't write them. It's a deeply collaborative effort. It's not the Rob Paulsen show. It's Rob as the voice of this character in a much bigger enterprise. But once I had throat cancer, I had an important story to tell because I didn't get toe cancer. I didn't get ear cancer. I got throat cancer. It's like a place kicker getting foot cancer. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I was able to come back and do my job and sing and perform at the same level I did before, that's an important story because, again, we never know when somebody's going to hear this lovely chat and say, God, I was just diagnosed. Am I sure glad I heard this guy's story because I didn't know if I'd be able to sing in church anymore. Mm-hmm. And I live for that hour every Sunday. If I can sing How Great Thou Art from the top of my lungs, it just feeds my soul. Or I'm in my weekend band with with a bunch of guys, and we call ourselves the Viagra 5 or whatever. But man, we play at the Smokehouse on the weekends, and I don't want to think that I can't sing Proud Mary again if I got to deal with this throat cancer. But this guy did, and look what he's doing. He's doing it for money. He's paying everything in his life is paid for with money, and he's done it after he had throat cancer. That's an interesting story. Mm-hmm. And I know it's working because I'm getting feedback from people. I happen to be the spokesperson for the Head and Neck Cancer Alliance. And this week, actually, is Head and Neck Cancer Awareness Week because over 600,000 people are going to be diagnosed with head and neck cancers. That's tongue, head, roof of your mouth. Like Jim Kelly, the former quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, had the same type of cancer as I, and he had to have a lot of surgery as well. But folks can go to headandneck.org and they'll see my story, and you'll learn a lot about how your dentist can help you search for head and neck cancers. And they're very treatable. But if you don't, it can be not only deadly, because out of the 600,000 people who will be diagnosed this year around the world with head and neck cancers, a couple 100,000 of them won't make it because they didn't take care of it right away. And if it isn't handled, then you go out like Roger Ebert, and that was a mess. Incredible courage, incredible story. The fact that he was right out there in front of the world showing us what happens. He lost half his mouth, for God's sake. From here down was gone. And he and his wife were so courageous to allow their story to be told, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
So please go to headandneck.org, and you'll be able to check out how you can get that handled most of the time by just going to visit your dentist. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Paulsen, I got to tell you, it was a pleasure.
My great pleasure.
To have you on the show and to hear your story and to hear all of the incredible things that you have done.
Thank you.
Prior to throat cancer and since. I want to thank you for being a part of my childhood.
My pleasure.
Teenage Mutant Ninja
Turtle
Turtles.
power, dude.
Yeah, that's right, man. And everybody else is out there in the world. And I actually I'm going to ask you a favor.
Sure.
Can you close out this show by telling everyone how to connect with you, follow you?
I can.
Learn about all the things that you want to push right now with a book, everything. But can we do it in a cool, voice?
Sure, we can do it in a couple different voices.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
It's your
all right.
show.
Okay, look. If you already see at the bottom of the screen there, Instagram is at Rob_Paulsen, Paulsen. And if you'd like to follow me on TikTok, it's Rob Paulsen 311, ROBPAULSEN, all one word, 311, because somebody stole my name. I had to use my birthday. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, it is at Yakko Pinky, at YAKKO, PINKY. Nerf, not the Nerf. I just like saying that. That's on Twitter.
And let's see, Turtle Power. It's Rob Raphael Paulsen here, and you can follow me, Rob Paulsen, voice actor, on Facebook. And remember, folks, as this gentleman will tell you, I'm sure, laughter is the best medicine. The cool thing is you can't OD, and the refills are free. And I'm here to tell you, sign up and do it every day. Laugh from your soul every damn day. It don't cost you nothing, and it makes you a lot more pleasant to be around. Trust me.